Hi, welcome back to Anime Insights. Today I will recap the final season of Bleach, Thousand Year Blood War. The show starts with Yhwach falling after a fight, but he regains his Shrift, the Almighty, which allows him to ward off Ichigo's power and become all-seeing. Ichigo tries to trap him, but Yhwach breaks through with his power and kills him. Having survived, Uryu manages to reflect the effects of Sanjumaru's Bankai onto her with his Shrift and pierces her heart. The defeat of Squad Zero is felt through the Serite, while Yhwach reaches the Soul King and impales him. As Uryu, Hashwolf, and the Schutzstaffel kneel before him, Ichigo's group arrives in the Soul Palace and calls out Ichigo's name, which raises him from the dead by using a portion of Ichigo's powers. Currently powerless, Ichigo asks Ichigo to stop the Quincy King. Meanwhile, Shunsui approaches Aizen in the Mukin. After healing Kenpachi, Yukitake heads to the Research Division, where Urahara and Nanao are coordinating the efforts to launch reinforcements to the Soul Palace. Meanwhile, Ichigo's group reaches Yhwach, who has already impaled the Soul King. Ichigo faces off against the Quincy King, pummeling him through Korinji's hot springs. Yhwach compliments Ichigo's powers gained through his training, but claims that Ichigo purposefully sent Ichigo after him, knowing that Ichigo will not win the battle. Then, Yhwach activates the Almighty, allowing him to foresee and nullify all of Ichigo's strikes, bringing him back to the others beaten. Yhwach then unveils the impaled Soul King, his father Adnius, shocking them. Yhwach details how the all-powerful Soul King separated the three worlds from darkness and was able to foresee even 1,000 years into the future. Ichigo rises to attack, with support from Orihime and Yoruichi, and manages to reach the Soul King and pull the blade out of him. Forced by the Quincy blood in him, Ichigo inadvertently kills the Soul King. Yhwach revels that everything proceeded how he foresaw and explains that only someone who is a hybrid of human, Soul Reaper, Quincy, Fullbringer, and Hollow like Ichigo can kill the Soul King. The death of the Soul King causes worldwide earthquakes in all three worlds. In a flashback, Yukitake, born with an incurable lung disease, is saved from death after his parents pray to a deity. Mimihagi, the right arm of the Soul King, fuses with Yukitake's body, thus stopping his sickness from progressing, but not curing him. Yukitake later joins the Soul Reaper Academy under the tutelage of Yamamoto, Sasakebe, and Unohana, and becomes close friends with his partner Shunsui. Confiding in him about Mimihagi, back in the present, Yukitake reveals to the others that the process he underwent as a kid gave all his organs to Mimihagi and, after handing over Squad 13 to Rukia, uses his life force to hold the Soul King together temporarily. While Ichigo, Yoruichi, Chad, and Ganju try to distract Yhwach, Orihime fails to reverse the Soul King's death, but Mimihagi attaches itself to him, something that not even Yhwach's eyes foresaw. In the Mukin, Shunsui partially unseals Aizen and tries to make a deal with him to help save Soul Society. Yhwach realizes that the reason why he did not foresee the right arm of the Soul King coming to the King's aid is because it is part of the Soul King himself. As he tries to destroy both the Soul King and its right arm, Ichigo grabs his right arm. While Yhwach is distracted, Yoruichi sets up a barrier around the Soul King's remains to keep it stable. Yhwach calls Ichigo weak for being unable to say "kill" against the man who killed his mother. Enraged, Ichigo prepares to slash Yhwach, but suddenly Yoruichi is shot by Uryu's arrow. The injury causes Yoruichi to lose focus, resulting in the barrier breaking, after which she is blasted off the Soul Palace. Uryu states that his reason for being there is because he is a Quincy, then proceeds to engage in a fight with Ichigo. At one point, Uryu strikes an arrow at Ichigo's face, but the latter is protected by his Blut Veen. Uryu activates his Volstendig and continues fighting Ichigo. The Schutzstaffel incapacitates Chad, Orihime, and Ganju, just as Uryu prepares a large arrow to fire at Ichigo, though the latter launches Getsuga Jujisho. After the two attacks collide, Uryu then fires another arrow at Ichigo, this time heavily injuring him, and he falls out of the sky. With the help of the other Quincy's powers, Yhwach completely breaks the Soul King's crystal, and absorbs both the Soul King's right arm and his entire body. Unable to contain the Soul King, his power bursts out of Yhwach in the form of one-eyed baby-looking parasites. which descend upon the Soul Society. However, Aizen arrives with Shunsui to crush the parasites with his soul pressure. Though his full power is bound by a chair designed by Mayuri, the Soul Reapers are appalled by the decision to use Aizen. Though Shunsui retorts that honor is meaningless when the stakes are so high. Suddenly, Aizen is immobilized by Nanana's shrift, revealed to have survived. Baz, Liltado, Giselle, and Nanana attempt to stop the Soul Reapers from ascending to the Soul Palace, but Baz kills Nanana and reveals that the three of them want to join forces with the Soul Reapers because they seek vengeance for Yhwach abandoning them. Shunsui agrees and contacts all surviving Soul Reapers to ask them to pool their soul pressure together, so they could fuel Urahara's gate directly to the Soul Palace. The remaining Vizords arrive and handle the preparations for the gate. The recovered Kenpachi also arrives, searching for Yakiru, though Nanao convinces him to join the assault group and let others find her. Having already recovered, Aizen prepares for the ascendance as well. After rousing the troops, everyone gathers at the gate, planning to leave Aizen in the Serete. On the bottom floor of the Soul Palace, Orihime heals Ichigo and Yoruichi, and the group decides to return to the top for an ambush. Yoruichi also invites Grimmjow from Hukomondo. At the top of the Soul Palace, Yhwach finishes absorbing the Soul King's power and begins changing the world. Grimmjow attempts to pick a fight with Ichigo, but he is stopped by Neliel. From the Garganta, Fullbringers, Ruruka, and Yukio emerge, as they were also recruited by Urahara to combine their powers, allowing Ichigo's group to swiftly reach the top of the Soul Palace. The Soul Reapers power up the gate as the Serete starts to crumble. Due to Yhwach, more cities in the Serete begin to break down, the remains of which he raises up to the Soul Palace, completely transforming it into a Quincy city named War Welt. Ichigo's group and the Soul Reapers arrive at War Welt simultaneously, shocked by the power one could wield to reshape the entire Soul Palace effortlessly. Yukio and Ruruka stay behind in the Garganta to act as potential getaway. Meanwhile, Hashwolf reports the arrival of Ichigo's group and the Soul Reapers to Yhwach. Yhwach sends Uryu and the Schutzstaffel to eliminate the Soul Reaper intruders. Kenpachi and his squad arrive at War Welt through Mayuri's gate. Mayuri and Nemu split off from Kenpachi, and both groups venture off towards the main keep, while Gerard is searching for Soul Reapers to fight. After Baz, Liltado and Giselle separate from them to confront Hashwolf and Yhwach respectively. The main Soul Reaper group is assaulted by Lil, who succeeds in shooting multiple Reapers down. Uryu begins firing arrows, separating Renji from the group as well. Renji unleashes his true Bankai and effortlessly overpowers Uryu until the latter activates Volstendig. But Renji powers through and grounds the Quincy. Backed into a corner, Uryu uses Sklave Ray to overcharge, after which he overcomes Renji and shoots him through the chest. Meanwhile, Ichigo's group runs into Askin and Grimmjow runs off to immediately pounce on him. After being forced on the defensive, Askin turns the tables on Grimmjow by poisoning him. Meanwhile, Mayuri's group runs into Pernida. Despite Mayuri's attempts to hold him back, Kenpachi charges in and slashes Pernida's head open, costing him his right arm, which Pernida snaps and begins to twist it on itself, forcing Kenpachi to sever it before it could spread to his entire body. Disregarding Mayuri's warnings once more, Kenpachi lunges at Pernida again, whose head started to grow abnormally large after being slashed. Kenpachi is caught by Pernida's attack and his entire body begins to swirl, though Mayuri stabs him from behind with a paralyzing agent, which stops Pernida's attack. After Mayuri burns Pernida's nerves with acid, they grow humongous and reveal themselves to be the Soul King's left arm. Mayuri is able to evade most of Pernida's attacks and then to sever a finger, but a new left arm grows from the finger and Pernida proceeds to sever another finger to create a new left arm. Mayuri relies on his new, altered Bankai, releasing a giant pregnant spirit that can give birth to a Zanpakuto spirit tailor-made with abilities for any specific battle. This new Zanpakuto has 70,000 layers of nerves on the outside of its body, which allows it to simply shed a layer if Pernida tries to use their nerves on it for control. The spirit then swallows all three of Pernida's arms. Meanwhile, Ichigo engages Askin in battle, while Yoruichi and Orihime tend to Grimmjow. Lil continues to target the Soul Reapers, forcing Shunsui to step in and stall him. As per Shunsui's orders, Nanao instructs the others to continue ahead. After his rifle is severed by Shunsui, Lil fully activates his Volstendig, turning into an angelic being, and gravely injures Shunsui. He is then forced to use his Bankai on him, which envelops most of War Welt. Within this area, Shunsui can initiate various theater plays composed of several acts. With Act 1, he reflects his injuries onto his opponent. With Act 2, he infects Lil with an illness. With Act 3, he plummets them both into an infinite sea, and with the final act, he uses a thread made up of Lil's supposed regret for harming him to decapitate him. After Lil's body crashes down, Shunsui collapses and is comforted by his Zanpakuto spirit, Ohana. On the other hand, Pernita blows the spirit apart using their Quincy bow. Nimue saves Mayuri from an arrow, but both of them are forced to sever an arm to avoid the nerves. Mayuri berates Nimue for interfering before regenerating their arms with a drug. Mayuri runs off to distract Pernita, tasking Nimue with injecting a nerve coagulating agent into an arrow to inject Pernita's body with it. The coagulant begins to spread up the nerves to Pernita, but they simply sever the finger before it could spread through the entire body. Nimue then shoots Pernita, but their exploding bits form arms and annihilate Nimue, leaving Mayuri in shock, though he manages to save her brain. As Pernita reaches for Mayuri, he reveals that Nimue's pituitary gland was implanted with an organ which forces synthetic cell division at an immense speed. Pernita is overgrown into a blob and explodes, though the last of their nerves succeed in twisting Mayuri's legs backwards. As a result, Rangaku and Hitsugeya are released and Mayuri and Kenpachi are placed in the life-saving containers instead. Meanwhile, Giselle and Liltado reach Yhwach's keep, where a legion of soldats stands in their way, so Giselle summons the zombified Meninas, Candace, and Bambietta. In a flashback, a young Shunsui often visits his older brother and his wife, the head of the Ai's clan. The Ai's clan is a matriarchal family of priests, whose male members are always cursed to die young. Only the family matriarch possesses a Zanpakuto, which is always passed down to the next generation, and is capable to directly reflect a godlike being's powers back onto them. After her husband dies, the Ai's clan head returns to her family home with her unborn child, Nanao. Later on, she seeks to protect the young Nanao from the curse of the blade, so she hands it to Shunsui, who hides it in his second Zanpakuto spirit, Akayo, which was birthed by Ohana to hide it. Afterwards, Central 46 sentences Nanao's mother to death for misplacing the sacred treasure, and Nanao soon joins the Soul Reaper Academy, where she is assigned to Squad 8 reuniting with Shunsui, not knowing that he is her uncle. In the present, Shunsui is pierced in the stomach by Lil. Nanao joins Shunsui and the latter uses his Shikai to hide them inside Lil's shadow. Shunsui reveals his ties to Nanao after the latter asks for her Zanpakuto and is determined to accept the curse. Nanao emerges, wielding a blade for the first time, and successfully severs Lil's arm, which does not regenerate. Shunsui decides to fight together with her and helps to hold the blade up. Lil creates a giant energy bomb, annihilating a huge chunk of War Welt in the process, though both of them stay safe behind the Zanpakuto, which reflects the attack onto Lil, and he is cut in half. Shunsui and Nanao try to rejoin the others, but they collapse and decide to rest and heal. On the other hand, Hashwolf is attacked by Baz as he is spying on Uryu's whereabouts. Over 1,000 years ago in Lichtreich, Baz and Hashwolf were two young Quincy's living in a rural area. Jugo is untalented, incapable of even absorbing reishi, whereas Baz is extremely talented. They quickly bond through hunting, the former for food and the latter to train. One day, Yhwach and his soldiers come to town and burn down their home, with the two children barely surviving. For the next 5 years, they survive and train in the wilderness, with Jugo learning to handle his family sword. During a visit to a town, the two encounter Yhwach's soldiers who announce His Majesty's intent to recruit young Quincy's into a group called Sternritter. Yhwach soon arrives and makes everyone bow with his spiritual pressure. With only Jugo standing tall, Yhwach reveals that he has been searching for someone like Jugo, a rare Quincy who cannot absorb reishi, but only empower others with it, and then take it back from them. Baz attempts to attack Yhwach, but Jugo deflects his attack. 3 years later, Yhwach becomes the commander of the Stern Ritter, while Bas is newly recruited and repeatedly tries to duel his friend so that they could have their revenge on Yhwach together, though his requests are always denied. In the present, Bas challenges Yhwach to another duel, but Yhwach explains that while Yhwach is asleep, he holds his power. Bas uses the full extent of his power, but Yhwach severs his arm before tearing his torso open, causing Bas to die from blood loss. On the other hand, Yhwach finishes absorbing Mimihagi in his sleep, prompting the earthquakes to return to the three worlds. Yhwach activates the Almighty and accuses Uryu of a future betrayal. Before attacking him, Uryu crashes down in front of Ichigo, Chad, and Orihime. Meanwhile, after the Vizords find and heal him, Renji rejoins Urahara's group just as they are attacked by Gerard. On the other hand, Askin downs Ichigo's group, after which he expects to wait until he can utilize his Shrift again to kill them. But Yoruichi steps in and frees them. Orihime quickly heals the two and Yoruichi instructs the trio to head off to Yhwach immediately, while Yushiro arrives to support his sister in battle. Utilizing his Shrift, Askin becomes immune to Yushiro's spiritual pressure and gravely injures him. Meanwhile, Gerard is beaten down and exalts that only a miracle would now give him the edge to win. After Byakuya annihilates his body, Gerard rises as a towering giant, explaining that his Shrift allows him to exchange his wounds into his godly size. The Soul Reaper group tries to fight back, but Gerard pulverizes all but Urahara. In the world of the living, Isshin and Rukin meet in a graveyard and decide to head off to Soul Society. Yhwach claims that he has foreseen everything Uryu has to say and orders him to kill Ichigo, Orihime, and Chad to prove his loyalty. Isshin and Rukin use Soken Ishida's old sun key to access the Gate of the Sun used for transportation by Quincy's and enter Warwelt. Lil's remains crash down on Soul Society and begin to form smaller clones, alarming the Soul Reapers. But they are bisected by Izuru Kira, whose injury was circumvented by Mayuri. Hitsugeya and Rangaku head toward Gerard as he hunts the injured Momo. But before he could attack her, all the Vizords assemble and hollow fire. Yoruichi beats Askin back while protecting her brother. Uryu's fight with Ichigo, Chad, and Orihime brings them tumbling down to the lower levels of the castle keep, where Uryu finally reveals that he joined Yhwach to follow his grandfather's teachings, who described Yhwach as the tyrant responsible for the deaths of innumerable Quincy's in the effort to heal himself. Uryu tries to convince them to use his sun key to go to the world of the living, but Yhwach arrives and declares that he already destroyed the Gate of the Sun to the world of the living, having foreseen this outcome. Uryu instead sends the others up to defeat Yhwach, while he stays behind to fend off Yhwach. When Yhwach expresses his surprise at how hopeful Uryu seems to be, the latter questions the quality of his Almighty, if he can even be surprised. The Bambais attack Yhwach in his sleep, but are swiftly dealt with, while Ichigo, Orihime, and Chad approach the keep. That's it for today. For more content, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.